What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today, we're taking a look at a clip from The Line. If you would like to, please go down below to the description and find a link to The Line and to the live stream that this video clip is coming from. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to The Line. I host over on The Line at least twice a month, so I hope to see you over there. All right, let's get on into the clip. If you're ready to fuck around and find out what this crazy ass caller's talking about today, then please stay tuned.
Let's talk to Billy, pronouns he, him, calling in from the tingliest of xylophones, has a structured syllogism demonstrating that life is not natural. We'll see how this goes. Billy, you're on the line with Forrest and John. How you doing today?
Not bad. Yourself?
Never had a bad day.
Excellent.
All right, let's talk about it. You have a structured syllogism showing that life is not natural. So we're arguing against abiogenesis here. Just before we get started, are you arguing for a particular kind of creation or just skepticism about abiogenesis?
Yeah, just the argument that life's not natural, or life is comprised of an unnatural component.
Sweet.
Yep.
No creationist model.
I have five premises. I'm sorry, and then the conclusion. But
that's fine.
Like
I've got
4 of them.
My whiteboard. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. So I should start with premise 1.
Seems logical.
The genome contains, or the genome functions algorithmically.
What does that mean?
See, I wasn't going to ask because I was like, we have a software engineer here. and then you come in like, what the fuck is that?
Well, yeah, because I mean, I understand what algorithmically means, like in a proper context, but I'm just kind of curious as to how you're meaning it in this context.
Well, algorithms are comprised of if-then statements, right, and conditionals, and that's how the genome functions.
Okay. Well, would you say? Well, let me ask you something. Does dynamite work algorithmically?
I don't know.
Okay. My point is that DNA is a chemical. It operates by laws of physics and chemistry and all of that. So, like, there are things we've identified as how chemistry works, and these chemical bonds change and all that kind of stuff. In the exact same way, if you apply like some kind of outside force to what we recognize as TNT. It'll release an immense amount of stored energy, of potential chemical energy in an explosion. That's in your very loose sense of algorithmically, that's the exact same fucking thing. If I apply energy to this chemical, it fucking explodes. An if-then statement.
No, I would say that the functionality of the genome itself, the sequence hypothesis, is different. Like, say in the case of the lac operon, if lactose is present and glucose is absent, then express lactase gene. In the sense of p53 tumor suppression, if DNA damage is detected, then activate repair genes or initiate apoptosis. In the event If temperature is above threshold, then express HSP genes. So,
right. You're describing laws of chemistry there, and that's not algorithmically as you're trying to make it sound. I mean, this is like you're trying to make it like it's an if-then statement, but you could literally apply that to any other chemical reaction. I don't know, Forrest, am I hitting this wrong at all? Like with
I don't think so. Like the thing is about what you bring up an operon, and a lac operon is like the standard textbook example of like this is what an operon. So an operon, for people who don't know, it's a cluster of genes within like this regulatory network. It's 99, I'm not a geneticist and it's been a long time since I took classes about this, but like 99% sure that it's not something you're going to see in a eukaryote. It's something you'd see in like a bacteria, maybe a virus. But what it is that it is influenced by the environment as to the expression rates. And so, for example, like this is producing, lactose, say, for example, in this one gene. If lactose is already present, then you're not going to have a transcription factor able to bind in this way. And so the proteins being produced are also part of this gene regulation. I'm fucking trying like hell to remember my undergrad in this right now, and it's rough. There's probably some geneticists out there screaming, but like basically the way these things work is that you have positive or negative inhibiting factors or something. And so like you'll have, if this gene codes for this protein and this protein is present, then the protein also binds up the transcription factor or whatever and doesn't allow it to bind to the gene to allow this gene to be expressed anymore and the same protein to be produced anymore. And when the protein is gone, then you have a conformational change in this protein that then acts as a transcription factor and does whatever it's supposed to do. And so literally it's regulated by the presence of the thing that it's trying to produce. And like that's kind of just like a recursive or reflexive way in which these particular gene sequences can function. Is that what you're talking about here, Billy?
Something, well, I mean, I guess something along those lines. There are if-then processes happening all throughout the genome, like in spliceosome processing. It acts like a string parser, scans RNA for patterns, deletes irrelevant segments.
You don't need a spliceosome. You're talking about really advanced, late occurring things to argue against abiogenesis.
Well, no,
that's like bringing up. That's like saying abiogenesis is wrong because you can't make a dog. Like that doesn't make any sense.
I'm not arguing against abiogenesis, like as a concept. I'm arguing against the nature's ability to sequence a functional RNA or sequence a functional genome.
Okay, and so you're doing this by bringing up again really, really complex shit that you don't necessarily need for the smallest genomes.
Well, I'm just trying to establish that the genome functions algorithmically, and that's actually not controversial.
And to John's point, can you name any process in chemistry or physics or molecular biology that does not process or does not function algorithmically in this way, with a series of if-then statements?
Well, I mean, not in a specific way, like the genome. Like the genome has specified complex algorithms.
If you have,
this is not controversial. Like there are scientific papers.
No, the way that you're discussing this is controversial.
Yes, no one is arguing whether or not the genome has what you could call an algorithmic function, where if this happens, then that will happen. That's very obviously a basic concept in molecular biology. What we're asking you is, if I have a thing of baking soda and I pour in some vinegar, then I'm going to get an acid-base neutralization reaction, which is going to produce carbon dioxide. That is algorithmic. If acetic acid is added to sodium bicarbonate, then it will produce carbon dioxide. That doesn't mean that it's magic. It's a very natural process.
I never said magic. I never said anything about magic. But you're right. You're right.
I didn't say you did.
Algorithmic too. So premise one, you agree with? The genome functions algorithmically. Can we move on to premise two?
Yes. Sure.
Premise two actually is kind of explains premise one. It's just that the genome algorithms are comprised of if-then statements, which is also not controversial.
So premise two is redundant.
So, right. So premise three is if-then statements require forethought.
No.
Now that's the one premise I have a feeling that you're.
No. So
right,
especially not in this particular context, because you are the one that's creating this whole if-then thing, because you're stringing things together. So like you're saying, if this thing happens, then that thing will happen. This is just cause and effect. Like
Right.
are,
Coding an if-then statement requires forethought, but acknowledging and describing an if-then statement is not a forethought situation. Once again, we can go back to John destroyed this entire fucking thing with his first question. Kudos to John. If I drop this marker, then it will fall at 9.81 meters per second squared. It will do exactly that. It will never not do that. I would have to change the conditions of the marker, of the environment around the marker. I would have to take the marker to another planet. I would have to, but I am sitting right here. If I drop this, then it will fall at 9.81 meters per second squared. That does not require forethought. That is a description of what is happening naturally.
Well, in algorithms, if then statements require forethought, that's a given. That's not something that's controversial either.
Right, but the genome is not an algorithm. We agreed it behaves kind of like one, but it is not one.
So Billy.
Well,
Billy, let's go back to hold on. Hey, Bill, wait a second, Billy. Okay, let's go back to Forrest's baking soda and vinegar example here, right? Now that chemical reaction, the way that reacts is because of the structure of the molecules and the atoms and everything like that of both vinegar and the baking soda, right? They combine in a certain way given their energy levels of their electrons and like spins and a whole bunch of complicated math. I mean, I've only been through the very basic level of like organic and inorganic chemistry and doing those equations, but there's a very specific way that those I know, fuck me. Very specific way that those things combine, and then carbon dioxide is produced as byproduct of that chemical reaction, right? So if what you're saying about DNA and all of that is true about it being algorithmic and requiring forethought, you would then have to agree that God has some kind of forethought, or there is some kind of forethought in that chemical reaction. Otherwise, you are making an argument about a magical element to the DNA, like the chemistry that revolves around DNA. So you inherently have to make a magical argument if you're saying that DNA operates differently than every other chemical that we've had experiences with.
I'm not saying that it operates differently. Sure, it operates the same, but if then statements do indeed require forethought planning, they're essentially
okay. Then would you agree that there's forethought in the mixture of vinegar and baking soda to produce carbon dioxide?
I mean, if you're mixing baking soda and vinegar to produce carbon dioxide, then sure.
No.
Right.
Acetic acid and baking soda are acetic acid and sodium bicarbonate are both natural products. They occur in nature.
Sure.
If one comes into contact with another, they will behave the exact same way at the exact same rate, barring temperature differences, pressure differences, blah, 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 as if I were just to pour one into the other.
But is there?
The chemical reaction. Sorry. I just wanted to clarify what I was saying. The chemical reaction itself does not require forethought. The chemical reaction is going to operate however the way that it operates according to the laws of chemistry and physics. But I guess I was trying to highlight that you were saying that you, as a thinking agent, mix those two things. So you made the decision to cause that reaction to happen. Now, not every chemical reaction in nature requires a some kind of sentient being to make it happen. There are natural things that just happen in nature, right? I mean, we both agree. That's a non-controversial statement, like a real non-controversial.
Right. But if there's an information mechanism that does these that performs these operations according to a system, then
what's an information mechanism? I'm sorry, I'm having to stop you so much. What's an information mechanism?
The genome.
How is the genome an information mechanism?
Would you say that the genome contains information?
I think that we can interpret the genome as
Hear that?
information.
Oh my God. No,
Yeah.
I would not.
That
science-
well,
the science
I
of
think Forrest choking on his own spit like an adult is information
Well-
in some kind of way.
Well,
Like
the
you
science-
can interpret information out of everything.
Well, the science of
That is
bioinformatics.
the long and short of it.
wait.
Yeah.
Wait, the science of bioinformatics exists because the genome is a code with information in it. That's why they call it bioinformatics.
Right. What you have to understand
It's
is
the
you
science.
are interpreting that. You are creating that interpretation. So, like, yes, the sequence of nucleotides in your DNA does cause a specific thing, and you are now calling that information. At the end of the day, if you were to change
I'm
nucleotide sequence, you get a different result. There's no like. There's no magical thing in here saying like it must be this way or it must be that way. It just is what it is, and then it's going to behave that way based on basic laws of chemistry. Let me ask you, like, I've got some questions I've written down over here, but I want to hear, you said you had 5 things. What's your next one? What's number 4? Because I bet I know where it's going.
Number 4 is nature's not capable of forethought or thought in general.
Uh-huh.
That's number 4.
Uh-huh. And what's 5?
Number 5 is genome is required for life. And then the conclusion is, therefore, life is not natural.
Right. So you said you offered no creation model. However,
No creation.
you've said now that nature isn't capable of forethought.
Right.
And then I'm going to put 6-year life equals unnatural.
Life is unnatural.
So, yeah, I'm just keeping little notes here. So you said that nature is not capable of forethought. Now, John and I are going to vehemently disagree with the fact that forethought is involved, but let's say we're not. So let's just pretend for a second that we agree that there clearly must be some sort of thing that created, or that had to think ahead. There's some sort of forethought that caused this algorithm. What is capable of forethought?
Intelligent things.
Right. And so if something intelligent uses forethought to put together an algorithm, what might you call that system or that process?
An intelligent thing, a hyper-intelligent thing.
That you just described the thing again. If an intelligent thing uses forethought to come up with an algorithm and then produce that algorithm, what would you call that whole process, that whole thing that's happening there? The thing with the intelligence making the algorithm, what is that whole process called?
Design. Call it design.
Intelligent design. Yes.
Intelligent
So
design.
what you have
Correct.
proposed here, you called in. The first thing I asked you is, are you proposing a model for creationism? You said no. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what you've done. You're proposing intelligent design, which is creationism in a cheap lab coat.
That wasn't part of my argument, though. You drugged that out of me. I wasn't going.
Right, but I just want to. I just want to be clear about the fact that what you are doing here is saying, I don't understand how this thing could have possibly happened naturally. Therefore, I reject it and necessarily implant this magical model that I have no evidence for.
No, you are superimposing that into my argument. I've made no argument of that kind.
If
Well,
life,
no, so
if life
I feel
isn't
like
natural,
At this point, you are.
if life isn't natural, if life isn't natural, if the beginning of life is not a natural occurrence, then you must have a supernatural, something outside of the natural, which is participating in this event, right?
Which could be just a hyper-intelligent thing. I don't care what it is.
Which is magic.
I mean, how do you know that?
Because it is outside of natural. It is outside of nature. It is
How do you know that?
supernatural. Because you said it isn't natural. So if it
doesn't have
isn't
to be
natural, what other options are there besides natural and supernatural? What are the other options?
There's unnatural. There's unnatural.
Unnatural. What is the difference between unnatural and supernatural?
Supernatural is something that is that defies the laws of physics, and unnatural is just something that isn't natural.
What does that mean? What is the difference between unnatural and defying the laws of physics?
Because things that are unnatural don't necessarily have to defy the laws of physics.
Give me an example of an unnatural thing besides the intelligent creator thing that you're talking about.
Your car is an unnatural thing. My computer is an unnatural.
So when you say unnatural, you just mean not something that you can randomly find in nature without some sort of intelligent intervention.
That obviously that's the definition.
Okay. So then if this is a thing, if this intelligent creator thing is not a natural occurrence and operates in non-natural ways that obey the laws of physics, then where did it come from?
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Do you have a mechanism that can produce something which is intelligent and can create algorithms and stuff like that? Unnaturally?
No, I don't.
No, which means your argument here is I can't think of a natural way to produce DNA. Therefore, there must be some guy that did it, and I can't think of a way to produce that guy. So all you've done is kick the can down the road and say, here's this other thing that I can't account for that accounts for this other thing that I can't account for. That doesn't do anything.
I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Christian. Dude.
I didn't say you were.
I don't follow any type of religion. So I don't know why. I
didn't say you did.
Well, it seems like you think that I'm trying to inject some kind of a,
I have not even implied that.
You kind of have.
No, I haven't.
I mean,
you said,
maybe
can you, okay. You said that there's an intelligence, there is an intelligent being that created an algorithm.
I never said
You said there is an intelligent thing, that created an algorithm.
I never said that either. I never made that claim.
Okay.
You said hyper intelligent.
Then let me ask you the next question. Can you give me an example? Can you give me an example of intelligence existing outside of a thing?
No, I can't.
So here we are again, where you don't have a model for understanding how DNA comes about naturally. So you have created this something that isn't a thing, but is intelligent and does have agency and can create an algorithm, but you have no model for where that comes from, how it exists, or how it's a thing without being a thing.
That's not my argument.
Once again, Billy. Yes, that is exactly your argument. You don't know where the genome comes from. You are claiming that the genome requires intelligence to get started. That is your claim, that the genome requires intelligence to get started. And therefore, there must be some intelligence that exists, that got it started. That's the foundational claim that you have. However,
I don't care what started it. I don't care what started it, dude.
You said it's an intelligence, right?
I don't, only because you drug that out of me.
Billy, I am addressing your entire point here, because at the end of the day, you gave us a 5 premise and 1 conclusion system here. By premise 3, we had already dismissed it. It made no fucking sense. But I'm more interested in the fact that the implications of what you're saying make less sense than what you're saying itself. Because we can sit here all day and argue about whether or not if-then statements require forethought. We're not going to get anywhere because you are not actually talking at the same level we're talking. You are on this other thing that you are denying being at, that you're trying not to talk about. You're trying to avoid talking about because it makes no fucking sense. And it's putting you in the exact same position that you're accusing us of being in.
Talk about that. And you're right.
Because it's the same problem that you're accusing us of having.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Dude,
it is exactly the same.
I've got tons of evidence that shows that if-then statements do indeed require forethought. So
Billy,
premise number three is there are no flaws in premise 3. So
Billy, we have already moved past it because it's useless. The point that I'm trying to get across to you. The point that I'm trying to get across to you, please don't, Billy. I'm asking you politely to not make me use the mute button here. The point that I'm trying to get across to you, you say if I mute you, you'll hang up.
Yes, that's what I do.
Oh, well, that's a stupid and bitchy thing to do. Like what a cowardly way to behave. You call into a show and expect to dominate it and control the whole conversation. How arrogant!
I don't support fascism. That's all.
You think that's you don't? Okay, well then you don't know what fascism is. So no one's surprised. But here's the thing, Billy, is that we're not dealing with premise number 3 because we've already dismissed it. What I'm more interested in talking about here is that what the end goal, the end result of your thing here is landing you in the exact same position that you're accusing us of being, which is having a system for the beginning of life that you can't account for or create or come up with a natural process for or anything. You are exactly as ignorant as you're pretending that we are.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to.
But that is what you're doing.
No, that's not what I'm doing, dude. You're not paying attention.
That is.
I'm not.
That is exactly what you're doing.
I'm not trying.
Can you define what fascism is?
I'm trying to. Yes, it's a forcible suppression of opposition, which is what happens whenever you mute somebody. You're forcibly suppressing your opposition. And
that's not what fascism is, nor is it what you're doing with the mute button.
But, I mean, even fascism, like a perfect example is when you hang up on somebody and then you continue the conversation while they've been effectively removed from it. That's fascism.
That's not fascism. That's ending a conversation.
No, and then continuing the conversation while they're no longer able to participate.
Yes, which you have done, which you, Billy, do all the time, probably almost every time you end a conversation.
I mean, I'm not forcibly suppressing you at all. You're the one with the mute button.
Have you ever carried on a conversation? Have you ever been on this show, hung up, and then talked about the conversation you had on the show with somebody?
No.
You've never talked about the conversation you've had on the show with anybody after you ended them.
Not after hanging up on you. No.
Sure. You just erase it from your mind.
I've only been hung up on unless you guys mute me and then I hang up. So that's how that goes.
Mm-hmm. And then you completely just erase the conversation from your brain. You won't bring it up to anybody ever again. Well, makes sense.
No. Well, I'll talk about it, but not after I've hung up on you or
Billy. Do you realize that's a bitch move?
I can't forcibly suppress. But you guys
Billy, you realize that's a bitch move, right? Like that's literally you.
I don't give 2 fucks if that's a bitch move, dude. Like the fact is, it's fascist. Okay, I'm not going to deal with that.
It's not fascist. I can't stress enough that's not what fascism is. Right. You are doing the meme right now of everything I don't like is fascism.
Why don't you look it up, dude? The forcible suppression of opposition is absolutely
forcible suppression of opposition. Forcible suppression of opposition is a part of fascism, but it is not the definition of fascism, which is what I asked for. Exactly. And also, us being the host on Billy, shut the fuck up. But when we're on the host, where we're the host of this show and we're trying to steer the conversation the right way, and you keep fucking talking over us, it is bad for us and the audience to let you do that. That's why the mute button button exists. It's not to forcibly suppress your views. This isn't your fucking show, and nobody owes you their time or attention. Nobody has to have a conversation with you. So if somebody chooses to end the conversation because they're bored of your bullshit, that's not fascistic. That's them being bored of your bullshit. And the fact that you can't tell the difference is, as John pointed out, a bitch move.
This is the only way you guys can contend with my fucking argument is by starting shit with me. That
Oh, I'm sorry, Billy. Billy,
you're so
Billy.
fucking
bitch.
I muted Billy. Billy, you're muted.
Now
Let's
he's
see
gonna
if
hang
you
up
follow
and feel
through.
justified. Oh, what a bitch. The fact that you're actually behaving that way? Are you fucking kidding me?
There he goes.
Billy's a fucking toddler. Oh my God.
Okay. First of all, I do want to say that at the very beginning of the call, we shut down the entire argument before he started because he described, the DNA as algorithmic. And, we thoroughly handled how if he's going to call that algorithmic, then everything's algorithmic, in chemistry. And so, like, for him to be like, oh, the only way that we can contend with his argument is by muting him. No, the only way that we can cut through him interrupting us is muting him. But to
so
combat his argument, yeah, we fucking handled it at the very beginning. So yeah.
Just fucking literally by premise 1, his argument was gone. By premise 3, the premises made no fucking sense, and he was trying so desperately to ignore the fact that he was doing the thing he was accusing us of doing with his actual full argument that he was trying not to talk about. And that he doesn't know what fascism is, doesn't understand that people can just not want to talk to him, and then has to behave like a fucking toddler. I cannot. I genuinely can't handle that a grown fucking man had to do that to maintain his own ego. I have not seen anyone crash out that hard in a minute. That was fucking rough. Oh my God. Yeah. Billy, go learn what fascism is, what algorithms are, how chemistry works, what thinking is, and how not to be such a fucking bitch. Go Google all those things and then come back to the show sometime. And when you can tolerate people actually treating you like a grown-up and not a little baby that needs to be coddled and allowed to speak and talk and say whatever they need to say to get their feelings out, maybe then we can have a productive conversation. Oh, my God. Oh, but here we are talking about him when he's not here. That's fascism, don't you know?
That's fascism.
That makes us literal Nazis.
We're oppressing him.
Billy isn't fascist. That's why he's literally he's never discussed a conversation that he opted out of. Never once. He's never done that. What a fucking goober. We've got a couple calls left. Let's talk to, we have one more theist on the line. The fuzzy logic. The first 4 words of the definition of fascism are a system of government. And here we are governing. Don't you see? This is America. This is what government is when 2 idiots get on a fucking call-in show and talk about Jesus for 3 hours. That's the government. And the mute button is the system.
Well, Heathens, that's going to be it for today's clip from the line. Again, if you would like to subscribe to the line, their links are in the description. So please go down there and subscribe. And as a reminder, I do host over there at least twice a month on either a Sunday or a Monday. So if you want to see more of me answering questions from callers, please go over to the line and subscribe. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, Heathens.